This is part 2 of our first haul out as brand new boat owners. Today we're going to be putting our drive leg back together, finishing up our first fiberglass project, and touching up some copper paint on the bottom.
Well, $450 at West Marine and Home Depot later, I think we finally have all of the stuff we need to make this fiberglass repair. This is the hole that we are going to try to repair today. I think we're gonna try to sand it first. The one tricky bit is that it's pretty close to the edge. So we're not gonna be able to like take as much off as I think like generally you would want to. You'd want something like 3 inches. There's like a 12-to-1 rule, but we don't have 3 inches. So I talked to a couple folks and they said like, just go to the edge, close to the edge, fiberglass it up, and kind of see how it turns out. This is the first time we're ever doing fiberglass repair, so I'm learning something new. Let the fiberglass grinding begin. I'm feeling pretty okay about kind of the shape and divot of this. It feels quite strong still on the edges, which is like a good sign. Step 1 in getting this new glass on is going to be cleaning this area. So we just got some acetone and a bigger cloth, and then we'll go to a finer cloth. Okay, so just cleaning it with a little bit of like fiberless cloth here. And by the way, I fully expect to have to do this again. Everybody's gonna be like, oh, you definitely did that wrong. But you know, if we have to do it again, we have to do it again, not the end of the world. We're gonna make like a little template here of around the shape and size that we kind of need to. Yeah, about that size. We're gonna want to start making them quite small, but enough to overlap here, and slowly kind of get bigger. I do think I'm gonna tape like a piece of cardboard on the back so we have kind of something a little more sturdy to hit up against, so it's not just floating into space. Okay, cardboard didn't really want to stick, but we did just a little bit of tape.
We cut out the fiberglass, numbered the pieces to keep the sizes in order, and mixed the epoxy.
So the way this is supposed to work is like 1 pump of the resin, 1 pump of the hardener, mix, and then just start putting it on. I fully expect this not to work, and then we'll just have to redo it again. But that's why we're doing it a week early. Okay, that wasn't ideal, but we're gonna go with it.
We went back and forth between woven and chopped fiberglass, applying epoxy in between each layer.
I can't believe our boat's made out of this.
I know, isn't it wild? I think we're gonna go heavy on the fiberglass, and then we'll just have a lot to sand down.
Yeah.
Because I want to like make sure that this ends up strong enough.
Especially beyond the corner like that.
It's so hard not to want to like touch it already, but I think we're just supposed to like let it sit and cure. I don't know how I'm feeling about it. It looks okay, but I also have never done it before, so maybe it's not okay.
I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, we'll sand it tomorrow after it's all cured.
While Patrick is getting started on the fiberglass project, I'm gonna work on starting to scrape off some of these barnacles because they're literally everywhere. I also spent some time working on rust stains, but honestly didn't get very far with this.
Ooh, big stretch.
Big stretch.
How do you feel about traffic?
I love traffic. It's the best. We're going to a machine shop, just like 25 minutes north in West Palm Beach, in order to drop off our transom plate. Is this giving you like nostalgia for all the time we've spent road tripping around?
Not yet.
Not yet. It's kind of just like worse than sailing a long time, depending on the sail.
Yeah,
Because then at least like you have a lot of space to walk around and stuff.
that's true. And I also get car sick, so
So there's like, it's not even really much better here.
it's not better than sailing for me.
Well, it definitely feels hard. This obviously needs to be ground down a lot. So I guess that's kind of where we're gonna start and see if we can get it kind of more flush. Okay, overall not looking too bad. Not quite as flat as I would want it, so we're gonna hit it with the sander again, and then go over it once again with some paint, and hopefully try like the, what do they, I think they call it roll and tin method or something, where you like roll over it and then you streak across it with a fine brush. So we'll go ahead and give that a go. Feeling good about the hole being patched though. We'll get the swim ladder back up there, get the screws in, and then figure out like where we actually need to re-drill the hole. Okay, as I was kind of like looking at things a little closer here, I thought this was just like a paint crack. But it seems quite squishy. And a little bit of water's coming out. So I'm wondering if that's also where leak water is coming in. You know, overall, it doesn't feel like it's not solid. I wonder if the paint just kind of got damaged and then was letting water behind that. So I think we're just gonna try to hit it with some more paint. I need to check if we need primer or something first. We're kind of on the fence about just painting over this or trying to fill it in with a fairing compound, but it turns out we already have fairing and we have the epoxy. So it kind of just makes sense to go ahead and give it a try, even if it's like maybe not gonna go the best. The fiberglass here feels super tough and strong, which is good, but the amount of like paint and I don't know if it's paint and primer or what, but it kind of makes for a deep hole. And with that being said, since I'm already making the fairing, I'm just gonna go ahead and toss some up top too, where we originally did the thing, to hopefully just make it a little smoother.
Just like fiberglass, we have never worked with fairing, so this is all brand new to us.
Let's try not to breathe in too much. It says you want it like, it says you want it to be like a peanut butter consistency. I feel it's more like an icing consistency. What do you think?
Depends on the peanut butter.
It's true. Is it almond butter? I think we need a little more.
Maybe just a touch. Don't go crazy.
I'm gonna go crazy.
Don't go crazy, dude. I just told you.
It's too late. He's already a madman. Help us, save us.
I feel like that's a lot. Okay.
That feels like peanut butter. This feels pretty solid, so I'm gonna say let's go ahead and just try to sand it down. It's been like 6 hours to cure, and it's pretty hot out, so I feel like it should have cured pretty fast. It does seem like the hole is patched, so up here also feels pretty solid. So yeah, let's just get it sanded down and then toss some paint on it.
We were much happier with the finish this time and started painting again. This area isn't perfect and definitely something we'll want to touch up when we repaint the boat, but it's so much better and sturdier than it was, so we're going to call this one a success.
So we're going to go ahead and dry fit everything, and by that I mean we're going to install the plate without any of the sealant or the bond. We're going to make sure everything lines up, and that from the coupling plate that couples the transmission to the actual outdrive, that it can spin freely.
We picked up the fixed transom plate from the welder, and it was time to figure out how to start putting it all back together. We had a lot of comments in the last video discussing whether the ear on the transom plate was weldable or not. According to the company Sailboat, who used to produce them, it is. It is made out of cast aluminum, grade LM6, which is weldable. But we did have to find a welder that was willing to work on this material, which took some time. That's actually one of the reasons we didn't want to be hauled out in the Bahamas. We knew finding someone comfortable with welding cast aluminum would be easier along the coast of Florida.
We need to make a new O-ring for the transom plate because the old one was just kind of worn out. We have to make one because it's kind of an odd shape and we did not order one from Sailboat, but it's kind of tricky. I also feel like the O-ring we got is slightly too big, but from talking to people, I think it's pretty close to the right size and it will smash down kind of what we have, so we're just gonna go with it. Let's do this for the first time. I'm gonna go ahead and tape it down because I need to figure out the exact length I need, and we kind of only got one shot at this.
Okay.
So, I was hoping that with the O-ring being pressed up against it for a couple of hours as we dry fit it, that it would hold its shape. Because on this transom plate, it's kind of a strange cornered shape, but no such luck. So, I talked to a couple folks and I think the answer is generally grease. You put in the slot just a little bit and then stick the O-ring in and then it'll hold. But because this thing is so cornered, I just think it's gonna pop right out. So we're gonna try a little bit of the super glue that came with the kit and see if it'll hold the tube to the aluminum enough that we can pop this guy back up. You'll find this stuff on almost every bolt in our boat. Anywhere Casper could put it on, he put it on. Accidentally grabbed black instead of white, but
We're just gonna go with it.
I mean, the transom plate is black.
That's true.
So I think it'll be fine. There's kind of two purposes to sealant or adhesive. So sealant is trying to get water out, and adhesive is trying to bond two things together. We used 4200, which is both a sealant and an adhesive. So it gives us a little more oomph of holding it together and keeping the water out.
Anytime you're putting new paint on something, you need a surface that paint is going to adhere to. So Patrick sanded down the parts for the drive legs locking lever.
It's prepping a bunch of these surfaces to be painted, or primed and then painted. You can kind of see down here, there was just a little bump on the propeller. My strategy has kind of been if you see a bump, if you see something that looks like chipped paint, just chip at it a little more, because it'll either show you exactly where it is held and bonded, or it'll just easily flake off. And even though it feels better when it looks whole, I think it makes more sense to try to I mean, it's obviously it's failing, right? If it's coming up like that, a bunch of salt back behind there, which I imagine is going to corrode the propeller at some point. So glad we're kind of catching this stuff now. Last step before priming is just wiping it down with this 216. I feel like it might just be like a scam product. Just kidding. But I feel like every time you're reading like the application instructions for like any of these primers or paints, there's always like one thing before you that you need to do, and then one thing before that. Good job. I basically went over the whole drive leg assembly and the transom plate and just picked away at anything that I could. Because you kind of quickly realize like how valuable these things are. I know like a lot of people like dislike the Silhouette drive legs. I think they're kind of neat. It's like a pretty simple machine to work on, and overall I really like the maneuverability and the simplicity of having one engine, although like the redundancy of having two engines is kind of nice. But you see some pictures online of these things that have just been like eaten away by corrosion. You kind of quickly realize that like any spot that looks like it needs more primer and paint, you just gotta do it, because otherwise like you let it get eaten away so bad that it's either trash or you're like trying to get somebody to custom fab. I mean, similar to the transom plate, where it's like the transom plate was just like a little eaten away and we had to have somebody like weld up whole new material and then cut it out in the shape that it was. And I think that's like doable on the transom plate, probably much harder on the drive leg assembly. Everything is primed, so I think the best bet is just going to be wait until the morning, then paint everything, wait for that to dry, and then put everything back together. In the meantime, kind of just work on the swim ladder. I went and got new hardware for it just because some of the screws just looked a little sad and they're just not that expensive to replace. So we'll use some Sika 295 UV on that. See, this one's white. This one doesn't have one. So we're chilling on that too. I feel like a lot of this has been cool because like you look at something and you're like, I bet I could figure that out. But unless you really have the opportunity to give it a go, or you're kind of like forced to give it a go, it just never comes up. So it's kind of neat that, like, as terrible-ish as this has been, more so expensive than anything, I do feel like it's been such a good learning experience for a lot of like just figuring out how to do stuff. So now I'm just gonna go up there and we're going to get these all the way screwed all the way down, and then maybe we'll run like a thing around it. Last big day in the yard. I think this is really where it's all gonna start coming together. It's not that early, but I did try to get here a bit early so I could get some paint on so things could dry, so then we could kind of get everything together. It was pretty annoying yesterday having to paint one side of some of these parts and then wait and then flip it over and then paint the other side. And also like it left some marks from the stuff I had to set it on, which is like pretty frustrating because I definitely thought it was dry. So instead we're gonna hang them up. We're gonna hang these things up. And then just paint both sides of them at the same time. I don't know how I feel about this hanging strategy. The transom plate obviously way easier because it's not rotating around a bunch. Starting to piece things back together. The advice I got from Casper was put Duralac on everything. Any stainless steel that is touching this transom plate, just lather it in Duralac and you will be much, much better off. Good thing I have some left. By that, I mean, thank you, Casper, for leaving me some. I have to order more. Definitely need some grease in there. It's not moving as lovely as you'd like it to. Maybe we can try to smooth out that surface a little bit, because this side's good, but this side already got scratched. Okay, so just gonna hit this ear on this outside where it's scratching, with some 120 grit sandpaper. Okay, we added a little grease, we sanded a little bit of the stuff away. That seems much better. Messy force was starting this.
I feel like that's no one's fault but your own.
I'm not gonna disagree with you. Okay, so now hold this guy.
Holding.
I don't know which way is up. So there's that. This guy can come out. Doesn't need to be in there anymore. Last thing we need to do for the drive leg is put oil in it. So this thing takes a ton of oil. It's like 1.5 gallons of oil. So we're gonna be here a second. 90 weight hypoid oil. Today we are prepping all of the surfaces to then hit with Coppercoat. I kind of have read through like a bunch of the data sheets, looking at like what you're supposed to do for the different areas, but it's kind of a little trickier when it's like a very patchwork. There's spots that we need to hit on the fiberglass that already have the Coppercoat on it, so it should be like pretty simple of just like sand it down, patch over it, away you go. But there's also some metal keels. The keel is at the bottom of our boat that are very small but quite exposed, and it seems like the Coppercoat didn't quite adhere last time. So I was looking up stuff like epoxy-based primers to put on metal before the Coppercoat, and it kind of leads you down this rabbit hole. And it seems possible, but the thing I worry about is like, because it's so patchy, it'd be like epoxying over just certain sections and then like maybe epoxying over the the good Coppercoat that's still there, and then like painting over all of it, and then it's just like, I don't know, I'm a little conflicted. So I think what I kind of landed on was like, I'm just going to use the Coppercoat, which is an epoxy coating, and hopefully just like surface prep it really well so it sticks. In a year or two when we probably like want to haul out again and like really redo the bottom, then I think we'll probably like strip all of that Coppercoat off and see if we can maybe do it a little more by the books. I mean, it can't be worse, right? That's kind of like the attitude we've had about a lot of this stuff. It's like, well, if the Coppercoat doesn't end up sticking, it already had no Coppercoat there, so it's not like it's any different, and now we like have a little more experience for next time. Well, we only have so many days before we have to get back in the water, so we're just gonna go ahead and try this Coppercoat thing. I think we're gonna try to mix half of what we have to go over all of the spots. We don't have like the most of it of all time, but I want to give us like a little bit just in case we need to patch more later on.
Let's go over a quick cost breakdown for breaking our yoke. Our Airbnb cost us $1,550 for 2 weeks. The haul out plus yard time cost us $1,500. The new yoke, spare, and extra parts cost us around $950. Other parts and supplies was about $600. The car rental was $380. And having the transom plate welded was $500. In total, we spent around $5,480 on this repair. So don't be too surprised if you see a few sponsorships in our upcoming videos.
I want to say that went as well as you'd expect. It might have went a little better than that, But I would say it was like an okay job at best and a bad job at worst. But at least it's better than it not having anything on it. It was definitely like a experience and trust the process, because like the first coat you put on almost doesn't look like it goes on at all. It just like did not really stick super well. But then by like the third and fourth coat, I'd say it's like pretty covered.
I'm in my jammies. I didn't want to get paint on any of my real clothes. I think he's being hard on himself. We've never done any of this before, and I think he did a great job.